Hi, welcome to Bunny Designs. I'm gonna now play with in my abandoned books. So a few years ago, I found a book when I went to Germany, all about castles and beautiful houses all across Germany, and I blocked lots of the background out, and I never really had a moment with it. I liked some of the things, but the problem I didn't like the first one I did. I loved doing, although I wanted to put the background back, and that's what I'm going to do in a minute. This is a practice. Some of the lines, because I was using the acrylics that were the craft acrylics, not proper, well, not proper acrylic, not acrylics, either student grade or professional. To get the thickness of paint or consistency to flow, it was very globular and very blobby. So instead of having beautiful thin lines that I could almost do like miniature paint on them, they're kind of full in your face and blanked out everything else. And as much as I love doing it, it's very therapeutic. It's not what I wanted for the image. I also had a book of parrots and birds, which I have destroyed. Now, this was for table mats, but it's like a little plastic pocket, and it actually holds quite a few. So I've bobbed them in there because I had them on this tray, and I want to show you the tray. So the book I found, and it's a huge book. It's literally three fingers deep. And it's a photographic book, but this version of it is matte. And I have another version of it, which is half the width, and they're shiny, glossy photographs. So my thinking was, this is printed on ordinary kind of paper, not photographic paper. So and this is my original one, which is a bit battered, and I can show you that it's a bit battered, and it's coming apart the seams. So my idea is to work through this book, and what I want to do is, I thought about adding birds, but then I thought I'm just going to abandon these places. So this one I might do first, and I've got my acrylics just in there. Now I've straightened my table up, so we should be okay. And I just need to do that. Bear with me a second. And then there's another one that I wanted to show. I mean, some of them may not work, but most of them will. So what I'm doing is I'm taking a photograph in this book, and I want to paint in scale to what's happening. And hopefully what I make is, so this has just got a climbing rope. But what I thought was, because I don't really have imagination, if I can't see it, I can't bring it out the back of my head. Not unless I'm doodling. I can when I'm doodling, but I can't when I'm doing pictures. And I thought it was next to that one. But basically, what I want to do is to take these ordinary, apart from this ordinary photographs of houses, castles, palaces, all places around Britain, and I want to abandon them. And the nearest thing I can get to is like this. So I'm going to paint over the tops of all these houses as if it's been abandoned. And the other thing that I'm obsessed with at the minute is snowflakes. So I thought if we had a snowflake, melting, we'd have water, and then the water would make rivers, and it would be all grunged up. Now, I had thought about the other obsession of mine is butterflies. So I thought I may start to put some butterflies in. So on each page, there'll be a snowdrop, which is creating the waterfalls, and a butterfly with its proboscis. So that's my thought. So, of course, this particular page here, this one isn't quite as abandoned, but it would be if we had we grunged up the beautiful white walls, we broke the walls and make them dark, we had water filling up the garden, and then some brambles and other wild plants and weeds growing around them. So that's kind of what I want to do in this particular book. Some photographs lend themselves perfectly for that. Oops, wrong way, sorry guys. Other ones are different. So that's the craziness behind it. So there would be a snowflake, and it would be, the water would be pouring down, but the ivy would have grown up and grunged it all up. Then all this would be water or a sea. And I got the idea again. I don't have an imagination, but we've got this kind of thing going on with the sea and the cliffs, and there's a couple of waterfalls, moving water. This is what gave me the idea of moving water. So I want to paint the moving water flowing down the buildings. Hopefully that makes sense. Not sure if it would work with these, but it was like a model village. So there'll obviously be some pages. I can't knock myself about thinking I can't do every single page. But things like this, having a snowflake, then the grass is growing up, the windows getting broken. The interiors are going to be slightly easier because obviously I've done quite a few interiors. Can't find one now when I want one. So again, we've got the windows breaking, we've got ivy growing up, but I want to try and do it to scale. So when you look at it, it's abandoned. It's an abandoned place, even though technically it's not abandoned at the moment. So again, here there'd be ivy and foliage and all sorts of weeds and things. So that's the idea behind there. There's so many different ones, and think about it. What I'm trying to do is think, what would happen if the humans disappeared from this space? Is that boat that sunk? I think that boat sunk. The weeds of grass would grow up, the buildings would be decayed and things like that. So I don't have an abandoned book, but I'm making an abandoned book. So hopefully that would make sense. And I had the idea that the drain pipe, that would be where the beautiful snowflake is, and then all the water would be pouring down, and then it would be filling around and maybe dripping down, and the weeds would be growing up, and the moss would be growing even more so on there. And this one doesn't have moss, and I have 3 of these books. I found one the other day for £3. I couldn't resist it because I just thought it would be so handy to have, and I had to pay £5 for my other one. And I can also look at the other pages while I'm working in this one. So hopefully that makes sense. If anybody's got any questions, pop them in caps. Just let me sort my chat out that I forgot to do. working in properly. So I just like the idea. I do have some very large map books, but I just thought this would keep me going and also get me back into painting, because I've forgotten how to paint. I've forgotten how to start a painting, and I've forgotten how to paint. So I am going to be using now. I have found, if I can slide this forwards, I have found professional acrylics, but I'm not going to be using those. I'm going to be using this set, and I'll be using these as well. And this set, I think there's only 3 of them. These 2, of course, these are my colours. These 2 I had at college in 1978, 79, 80. So they've done very well. They've been in a tin. That's where they've been. And then I think I bought these later on this set. So I've got 2 sets in here. These are student grade, but they'll be perfect for this. And I can get the colour intensity that I want with the consistency that I want as well. So I'm not going to be using these. Again, the acrylics I bought separate. I normally buy just 6. I normally buy, unless they're in a set, and it's cheaper, but normally I buy my 6 colours of lemon yellow, cadmium yellow. This one's quinacridone magenta because they didn't have any Elysian crimson, so it's the nearest one to Elysian crimson, and it is the printer ink colour. Cadmium red and French ultramarine or ultramarine blue and cerulean blue. But I did get the purple because I just saw the purple, dark cyan purple. I've been using that one in another set and it grew on me. So I got 7 of professional ones. And these are obviously in a traditional set. So we've got siennas, we've got umbers, Elysian crimson, ultramarine, cerulean blue, cadmium yellow, and cadmium red. So you see, there's another 6 I bought because they're my 6. None of the others match, apart from white, and I think there is a black. No, I haven't got black. There is there is a white of that one. There is a white one, so that may have been in a set, I think. And then I picked up along the way some different colours here. I think for the minute I'm just going to play with my 6. Although there is a brown and a leaf green, so I didn't have to mix too much. I could use those, I suppose. And I think there's an orange and a purple. Cadmium orange hue. No, I think I'm going to stick with my 6. Again, same 6. Very boring I am. I now buy professional colours, either acrylics, oils, or watercolours. And I buy lemon yellow, cadmium yellow, cadmium red, Elysian crimson, ultramarine, and cerulean blue. Because you need those for the best greens, you need those for the best purples, and those for the best oranges. So they're your secondary colours, and then every other tertiary falls into place. So I'm going to play with these 6. So the next thing to show you is the palette. Now, I do have this huge Stay Wet palette, which I bought when it was reduced. It's quite big. It's probably 3 hand spans. It's quite a big one. And you normally find you get acrylic palette papers. Again, these were part of a set or in something or other. And I will be using that. But you can use, for about 2 or 3 days, you can use a tray 2 layers of kitchen paper. So I've got 2 huge pieces of kitchen paper, and then you want the greasy side down, I think, or up, I don't know, up maybe, doesn't matter. Kitchen baking parchment. I like the white one because it shows the colours up. So even though you've got a black tray, I don't like black trays for colours because you can't see the true colour. So I put it on there. Down to, but you've got a big mixing space. So this is my Daily Rowney one, and hopefully they're going to stay there for about a week if I keep wetting them. If I remember to wet them, they will work. And this one has a lid. It's not a stay wet lid. It's not a stay wet palette. It's not a fixed air dried one. I have some of those. This one just sits on the top. And the same principle is you put your kitchen paper down. I'm just going to hold mine so it sits in the bottom neat. So I'm hopefully going to get about 3 to 4 days before the paints dry out, but I'm not going to put a lot of paint out because I'm a tight Yorkshire lass and I don't want to waste paint. And then what you do is we need to wet it. So it doesn't need to be too wet, but it does need to be saturated. So if you pour water on and then kind of tip it about a bit. I do have 2 double layers on here. So again, this is the trick. But you must have the kitchen paper, and that's quite soggy. You must have the kitchen baking parchment on top. You can't put your oils on there. You can't mix on that. It goes to mush. So it's going to keep this damp. And don't ask me how it works, but it works. And this is the student way to do things that we did. So you can do that, but you can do it on anything you like, on a plate, on a tray, anything you like. So I've got the tray, and I'm going to get rid of the big book because I'm not going to work in the big book today, I don't think. Oh, dropped it. So I work light to dark, but I think I'm actually at work white to dark. So I haven't put white out. So there's my 6 colours. Which I can get out the way. So the palette wants to be there to one side. I need a piece of kitchen roll for cleaning, or face wipes, old face cloths. I've been keeping old face cloths for that. Right. Now the one thing I do need to do is to find the palette knife, which may not be as easy as first thought. It's always easier to mix with a palette knife, and of course I insist on putting all my palette knives in the same place. I'll keep that little one out because that's quite a handy one. The other thing that this has is I have to ask hubby to get me one. I'm a bit lame to do. The other thing that this palette has is on the side here, it has another well. And this is to lay your brushes in. So you never lay your brushes like this because you damage the end, but you lay them flat, because when you're working with acrylics, you never leave your brush out of water. So you can lay them kind of flattish. I'm going to use those, I think, today. You can lay them flat. Oh, sorry, guys, the rain's come back with a vengeance. And I'll just have to ask hubby to get me some. So we need some water in there. Now, I do have a big pot of water in front of me, but if you can see, they just need to, the bristles need, we can't have them upright, we'll damage them, but we want to lay them flat, but they need to be underwater. And that means you won't trash your brushes while you're working. So I just have to ask hubby to just a minute. I'm just trying to get hubby because I need a. Right, just bear with me a second. My phone seems to be so banged up. Just right. Hopefully, hubby's going to arrive for mixing brush paint. Otherwise, we'll have to mix them. I don't like mixing paintbrushes, mixing paint with paintbrushes because it trashes them, even the yucky ones. So you've got to be it. Oh, I just found another big one there. That's quite a nice one. So the reason I want to do this is just cannot believe I've got hundreds of paintbrushes and not one palette knife. So I need to move that to one side. Now my thing's been split in the middle here because of this, but we'll have a look. So what I might do first of all is here. Again, I could start with this one and make a green, and what I need to do is to put the background darker to make things pop up, because at the minute you can't, it always looks flat. So obviously they're in the background and they are smaller, but because it's the tonal value now, it's nothing to do with detail. The same with this one. I don't like it because it's just not working for me. So I need to have a bit of a play with that. This one, I need to be working really tiny, and I can't get that consistency with the craft paints, the craft acrylics. I'm just not clever enough. I did love this one, and then I didn't like the big thing, so I either blank them out. I don't think I can wash them off. Blank them out and start again, or kind of make these twisted, so it's not one vine, it's several vines twisted together and then falling down. It's a bit like that tree that's, and I can't remember. Oh, just bear with me a second. I just have to ring hubby. I just have to ask him to get me these things. Oh, Tricia, welcome to Granny's Designs. I'm making some acrylics, and so I think I'm going to see if I can do something with this and make it a bit more kind of believable, if that's the right word. So I'll get rid of all the others. Oh, that's his phone. But I just can't get up at the minute. Oh, that's why he's not answering. Alfie Cross, behave yourself. Sorry about that, just asking hubby. Hello? No, I'm going to have to mix them by hand. That's fine. I'll mix them by hand. I've just sprayed some water on them to make sure that they're very soft. He should be in the next room, bless him. Never mind. It's just so much easier to mix them with a palette knife, but never mind. It's a bit of a... One of my little brushes had a... it's got a almost a palette knife to it. I've had this one for years, this brush. Many years. Right, so I'm going to mix some greens up. I'm going to do both. I want some dark. You've got to clean. This is where you start wasting paint, but you've got to clean your brush when you're dealing with acrylics. You just have to do that. So. And then the way to get, I've just made 3 different greens. The way to get a darker green is to add a touch of red. So I put a dollop of red next to the greens because I really want to darken these up. So I'm going for this. And got to be careful you don't get a brown. and it's not a red. If you put a red, now so it needs what to do is the kind of also darken down this particular leaf, because it is behind here. Now when it comes forward it will get lighter. That brush is so badly split. Look, it's a real old one now, and hair on there, so I need a finer one. I have thousands of brushes because I didn't look after them. So try it back and see if we get it to a point. And again, I almost want when I do a very dark for a green leaf, I put and the consistency here is a bit, and this is on a photograph, so I'm hoping when I work on the other one. So we're pushing this back if we can, trying to push it back. I do want it thicker than that though. I like the consistency of double cream, really. It flows enough to get some detail, but it's not flowy enough to want a little bit of light coming through. So again, I'm just drawing that bird forward a little bit, and then that one is forward, so don't want that acrylic is the wrong. The other thing is, if you've got so much to do, you must give yourself What are you doing, Missy? Sorry, I thought the cat was being a little bit. I couldn't get up, but then the cat's just being sick, so that's good. I just haven't done it over yet.
Where's the cat been?
Nigel. Right, I found my palette knives. I think a little one is probably the best. I've got fat ones. I find that's my favourite one, a little tiny one, and it's got a bit of a ridge on it. So I have to go now. If you could dump that back in, then that'd be perfect. Thank you. I don't need that either. Oh gosh, I got down and I can't get up. Right, so oh, hi Suzanne, welcome to Bunny's Designs. Have I gone off?
If you get Suzanne back, just send them over there.
I will do, darling, yeah. Just give me a second. Bear with me a second. Do this again. Oh, I wonder if that's. Aha! Don't know if I'm doing this right. That's slightly better because I can get to make a few more colours now without wasting any paint, because I do hate wasting paint. So I must have done that, I think. So I need to do the same under here. And again, just grace my paintbrushes out. So when I do a green, I normally have what we're trying to do is to get the bird to sit on something and be in front of something rather than, so it's in behind that one but in front of this one. So we need to make that as dark as possible. So it's kind of grunged up a little bit, so we'll kind of grunge that up a little bit. And we're just making it look a little bit grungier than it is. And perhaps that bit behind there would be a bit darker as well, so it makes the bird come forward. So now this little bird here has got a bit lost, so I'm quite desperate to get this paintbrush off because it's quite a nice. So trying to get the bird to sit back a bit. So the bird to come forward a bit. So the other thing I need now is a little bit of that blue. And again, it's just going to make that bird sit forward. Because we can't have all that lovely white paintwork. This was a very, very pretty staircase before to paint over it. So of course it wasn't grungy at all. It was quite pleasant. Of course, the one to do with that. Is to add to make that kind of grungy up a bit, especially behind the bird, because it will make the bird sit forward a bit. So that one sits forward. That one definitely brought forward now. The little one down here. So I'll go in with this. So again, that little bird is beginning to pop out a bit now. Because the colours are right now in front rather than behind. It's always better to have the same brush when you're doing the same things, but obviously this was last year and I can't remember what brushes I had. There comes a moment where everything is overgrown. I think I've got one little bird forward. I think the other one's a little bit forward. It's just Amy just needs a little bit more oomph. Oh gosh, sorry guys, the rain's coming down now. It's not quite as I envisaged it, but it's still grunged up, but at least the little birdies are. As I say, it did start out to be a beautiful palace staircase. So, oh gosh, look at the wind's getting up a bit as well. So it has grunged up quite a lot. So at least we've put our little birds back in the foreground where they should be. So clean that brush. So I'll put that to one side because when something's not working, you just don't want to kind of play. Now, I wanted to rescue this one. I seem to have got quite a lot of lines on it, but I might be able to get away with those. So that one I envisaged that would have a snowflake on it and the water would be coming down. So, I could rescue that. And there's another one with another bird on it that I had. That's the other one I was going to have a go. I spent quite a lot of time on that one. Right. So let's have a look at this one. I seem to need some smaller brushes, I think. So what I was trying to do is imply that this is twisted. So that one's that colour. So I've kind of got a bit of twist thing going on here. I don't like the consistency of this. I still don't like the consistency. And then these wider vines might be a bit more believable, I think, than just... Oh, there's the elf master. I think I'm going to have to break my rule and use white, but I do use white in acrylics. Oh my goodness me, the rain is terrible. So thanks guys for stopping by. I just wanted to see if I could rescue this, because sometimes you do something and you, whether it's you or the equipment. So what I need to do is just on the top. Remember to keep going back to keep that point. You can't always do it. So I've got burnt sienna. I'll put a little bit of that out, and then I can I think I lent the black. Yeah, I'm sure I did. My daughter was doing a project. I'm sure I gave her the black. When you're using this palette, you've got to remember that it's easy to go through. So again, that's another thing to think about. You can't dig your palette in. I do need all that through. I do have some lovely murky green, but I'm not sure if that's the right colour. If you get it too thick, it just does not. It does not flow right. I want the consistency of single cream. If it's double cream, it just kind of sits too. I'm trying to get the top on properly. See? Trying to get very dark. This is not a quick, definitely not a quick flick, isn't this? You take lights and darks, and then darks to lights, and then lights back to darks. And then eventually you see something coming and you think, oh, well, that will have a shadow around it. And then you start to make it look just that little bit. That white is too stark, it will disappear eventually. Then we might just get some whispers out, that wispies that just sit up a little bit. The only problem is you've now got to do every single one and follow where they go as well. That's the other thing, you've got to follow where they go. It's not going to be a fast one, isn't this? But again, you can't really have it too uniform because that's not going to work. So that one just ends, and then I've got one here. So it's quite therapeutic in a way, because when you find out what you're doing, now obviously it would be easier to start a new one. Because I'm doing one from scratch, so I'd do one and then I'd do another one and then I'd do another one. So You really do want the tiniest brush. So I pulled it round a little bit. I don't know if that's, you can see, looks more a bit like a vine now than just, or a twisted rope, rather than just some jiggly line. So I feel a little bit better. And building up and building up and building up until eventually we can. And then we've got one behind now as well. So, but again, this is not going to be a quick fix. And again, it's all to do with the consistency of the paint. Right. I kind of like that actually. I like that one. And now I've got the little birdies back where they were. I kind of like that one as well. And that one I've tried. This is going to take a long time to do. But I will persevere with that. It's just will be very boring for somebody to watch. So what I want to try and do is just take out these snowflakes because they're distracting me a bit, and I don't like my mushrooms. I put mushrooms on here as well, and I don't like my mushrooms either, so I think they're going to have to go. One thing I did like is this very, very thin, I've lost my slipper now, very, very thin thing there. So and the other thing what I wanted is I didn't really want it to look the same all the time, if possible. I didn't, just get rid of that because I don't really like that either. So the other thing I was going to use is my little book to have a look and see of wildlife, to see what kind of wildlife we could put in there. Now convolvulus is a really lovely one. Now that's, but it's so big compared to the size of this. I'm not sure if I'm going to be clever enough There's so many wildflowers in this little thing. It's the shrubs that obviously will grow wild, and ones with the berries on as well. So I could maybe do the problem I have is these are so thick. I can't really get them as thin as I'd like. It's the wrong brush. I'm going to have to find myself a smaller brush. Let's see if I can find myself. Just this is just a practice, really. This one might just work, this one. It's still got to be quite enjoyable as this, otherwise you really don't want to do it. So I think this one would be obviously stems from here, so it's got to branch out. Yeah, I've messed up. So it's just a rough. So what I need to do now is it's just a rough idea, and then it's going to be more like twiggy, if that's the right word. If that's the right word. So so I need to kind of wish my paintbrush would behave itself. Eventually, I should have a light side and a dark side. Oh, I have to get rid of that. Again, it's just a rough guide, and then we put in more detail, until eventually I think it might be easy to do on the other ones. It's not a shiny photographic surface. So that's what I'm thinking. It's not going to be. So some quite twigginess going on, I think. Quite twigginess. Obviously, he might have a twig in his beak as well. So some twigs. So I now need what I would call kind of a normal brown. So I'll clean this up and start again. So I'm going to put a So I've got a deep brown, a reddy brown, and a sand brown. So I think I'm going to start. So this brown goes underneath all the pale as thin as possible. Now the light is slightly against me, but the reddy brown branches actually work quite well because there's a lot of reddy brown. And then you've got to remember which goes over the top of which one and which goes behind underneath, otherwise you get yourself in a pickle. I don't suppose it matters too much at this stage. As I said, this is not a quick fix. I'm hoping it's going to get very twiggy in a minute. And of course, the one thing you've got to do is to start at one side and work across. Just have to remember branches gets I just keep going with this warmer colour. So we had the cool dark one first. Then we've got this warmer one. So definitely self to picking up I didn't know if you wanted to hear the kids, the cats chomping their dinner. It's dinner time at the zoo, so you can hear all this because it's lunchtime at the zoo. It's feeding time at the zoo. So I'm just putting, and this is an exaggerated highlight because I want to now concentrate on what goes in front of what goes behind what. And this is now making the decisions of what's going behind what. And in order to do that, I need to, most of this will disappear. Most of this highlight will disappear, but it's going to give me an indication of where things could go. And we're slowly covering the bird up. So welcome to Bunny's Designs. This is, it was a German book all about beautiful palaces and interiors. And I'm abandoning, and just 2 seconds, just 2 seconds. My camera seems to have just had a bit, just 2 seconds. There is still a little bit of chomping going on the other side. I think it's got a big split there. I think that's about complicated as we need to be, really, because it's going to get worse. So now, I mean, there's some really big highlights on the bottom. And now I need to do is to make a black, because, or a Payne's grey, but I don't really want a Payne's grey. I want more of a black. So I need to give my, oops. And I don't know what I did with the brown now. got Havana brown and a burnt sienna. Havana brown is darker. So if you start with the darker one anyway. I've got a little bit out there as well because I did want to keep some reddy browns because of the reddy bird. So that's the madness behind that one. Let's see if we can. So the Havana brown isn't quite as dark as Venetian brown, but it's still quite dark. And the other thing you've got to do is remember to mix enough. I might have to put these two together. You need to mix enough, really. At this stage, when I do more detail later on, it doesn't really matter. But at this stage, and I think I need more water, actually. As I say, it wants to be the consistency of single cream. When it gets double cream, it's a bit. So this is where we think, are they going to be that thick? Just gives another dimension to these branches. I mean, this isn't going to be photorealism. I'd like the other one to be, but this one particular one isn't going to be photorealism. I'm hoping when you look at the other one, you can't tell. Now this one's not quite as bad because I'm not twisting them. The other one there was a lot of twisties. This one's just straightforward branches. There just seems to be a lot of them. And so this is when you start to decide what's going up and under and round and however else we've got. So we're building up a little bit of character. Hi, Jess. So the cats have just been fed, bless them. So it's not feeding time at the zoo anymore. So I've got a few more branches, and if we're uncomfortable with that, we can kind of, I mean, it could be snow, it could be snowing in there, it could be doing anything it wants to, really. So I've got quite a gnarled old tree there that's going under that and then going over the top. So I need to look for a pretty cold shadow now. Don't really want a warm shadow. I really don't like the consistency of this, but it's just a bit too thick. But when you get it right, you've got some really nice. I think I might have to destroy. This is the one that you put your cardigan, your old cardigan on.
Want some tea?
Yes, please, Tilly. Could I have a big one, please?
Yeah, sure.
Thank you. So thanks for stopping by. Hope everybody's all right. I think it does look a bit like it's snowed inside. I might have to put snow on everything. Which is messed up because I was going to put some little flowers, but I think actually I quite like the idea that it's a bit snowy. It's a green grey, this one that I'm using, so it might create some really nice dark shadows. Oh, Hobby's brought me a cup of tea, bless him. So thanks for watching. Anybody want to say hi? Welcome to Bunny Designs. And just having a bit of a altered book page. I've knocked my camera, so it's telling me. So there's not much going on up there. Alfie! Oh, there's going to be a fight in a second. You've missed it, Auntie Susie. Sit, sit. Good boy. Good boy, Alfie. We've missed Auntie Susie today, so you've missed your Auntie Susie, so he's not feeling a good boy. Oops. It's not my old cardigan, so I'm trying. I've just about, I think, worked out who's in that and who's below, so I kind of like that. Oh, Alfie Cross. Alfie. Alfie. That's naughty. He's jumped up and he's pinching the dog cat food. He's already had his tea, so. Alfie. You are a bad puppy, aren't you, Alfie Cross? I'm pinching the cat's tea. The more I think about it, the more I like the idea of snow. Not quite sure how I'm going to do that. And then we said we wanted a bit of a twig. In the bird's mouth, don't we? So we just need to just put a bit of a twig in his mouth, I think. Alfie Cross, can you get down, please? Alfie, get down. Good boy. Honestly, he's been such a bad boy. He's such a bad puppy. So, oh dear. Alfie, wear your name out again. Good boy. This is when we can start making each branch look. So this is my version of an abandoned place book. It's giving it a little bit more of a depth colour. It doesn't suddenly just become black and white. There's a bit more colour to it. So we can start putting a bit more life into this. whatever it can do. I think what I may have to do if I do another page is just do a little bit, because it's so boring watching somebody do the same thing. So sorry guys if it's really terribly boring. I'm trying to warm up all these branches and make them a bit more believable. But actually I think I might leave the snow thing and put snow on the roof, because I've got snowflakes anyway, so I may do that. So thanks for stopping by. I hope everybody's all right. This is a live show, but I think somebody else must be on, so that's why I'm not chattering. But I had to stop the other one because I had to get the acrylics out and it was going to be noisy. So I want to know what that cat's eating. I can hear it, but I can't see it. That can be in the background, that one. I'm quite pleased with it. It's completely different to the other one, and it makes me think I might get away with it. Oh, gee, just have to have a break. But I haven't got much done considering I've been at it maybe 2 hours, I think, this one. I don't know. The tree trunk. And then that was the one that I did earlier, trying to rescue that horrible big daubiness that I didn't want. So I've been using it to show more twisted vines. And it's dried, so again, it's quite nice. It doesn't stick your pages together. It's just that I put too much black on mine and they fell apart. And I'll show you the palette. Uh-oh. She's fell in the water again. They did that last time. So there's the palette. There's the greens. I made that. That's the color I've used for the highlight. That's the low light. The very low light is that one there. The greens, and then the greens and the browns. And I put an extra little dollop of brown out, so I've been using that. I'm not sure if it's the acrylics. I might get out the professional acrylics for the other one. I'll have a think. I do need to. I quite fancy looking at that. It's in one of my colour books. See if it comes up. Not quite what I wanted, but what I'm thinking of, that's what I'm thinking of, that one there. I forgot, a very famous ancient city with the tree roots. So that's what I'm thinking. Buildings, the outside of the building, something like that. So the reflection. So that's what I was thinking of when I'm thinking of abandoned places. What time we're on now? It's 5 o'clock. I used to come off at 6, but this is a 2.5 hour video, so I think that's probably enough for anybody. It's very boring because all I'm redoing is I'll be going through these, making them a little bit more realistic. And I actually quite like the idea of snow on that one. I'm quite pleased that I managed to put the birds forward a bit now, so that's working slightly better. Could do with some more detail in there, but that was my first attempt. This one's going to take hours. I mean, it took nearly an hour to do that bit, but it's going to be worth it because it obviously it works. That one can be in a little bit more detail. So brambles, I might do brambles on that one because brambles can be broken through. Now the birds were out of a bird book, a domestic bird book. So if we can find some brambles. There, we've got some brambles. So again, these kind of trees would break through the windows and kind of cause damage and grip onto things. And I've taken lots of photographs of brambles and blackberries so that they can be seen. What's the other one that I love that climbs as well? There's the convolvulus, which is the climbing ivy kind of flower. There's some little celandines. They're other things that kind of grow in abandoned places. But I like the idea of wild flowers and wild trees doing that. For some reason the brambles have gone. There they are. So the blackberries and brambles kind of bursting out. I kind of like that idea. So that would work because I could make them big enough. I could make them big enough. I'm loitering to see if Suzanne's hubby says hi to Suzanne, and of course we've missed her because missed her. So and toadstools, of course, at the back here we've got algae and we've got toadstools. So again, other things that grow out of woodwork and rotting old windows and things. So we've got some really unusual mushrooms and toadstools that we can use in these spaces. If it's kind of a blown up painting that one is, that's quite a zoomed in photograph. That's what I'm trying to say. So thanks for watching. That's the end of abandoned photographs. Thanks for watching.